A very good afternoon. A very good afternoon, change makers and co-creators. So I'm here to deal with the idea of creating, but at the same time, creating with purpose. So a lot of people start with this question, especially asking themselves, can I shape a resilient place-making brief? A lot of times, we are given a brief as designers, sometimes, as developers, the market kind of churns out a brief for you, which is mostly based on finance, right? And you're stuck with it. For designers, you receive this brief and you are supposed to come up with tons of options. Then after that, you fight for the fees. For developers, you come up with a brief that's based on numbers and transactional ideals, but nothing to do with relational ideals. So how do you create this brief that really makes sense, that really has depth? At the beginning, we need to ask the right questions. These questions must lead to the strategies of the best plan. And these best plans must have a commitment to action for good. So my talk will basically focus on these 5 questions. The what. In this case, I'll talk about the spirit of a place. The why. Because I'm Consulus, I'm coming here to propose this method called place call. The who. The understanding. After we see what is there, we look at the mirror of ourselves and finding our 3 states of being so that we can go on to the how, where we have possibly 3 steps of initial actions and iterations and strategies that we can grow and maximize in 3 stages. And finally, what next? Of course, everyone is talking about AI and data now, but very important is to link AI and data to the process of design. The what. Since I'm in Sarawak, I've been here since 2011. If you look at this picture, all the way to the umbrella-like structure to the right, or maybe to the left in your case, you have the Dun, which is the Dewan Undangan Negeri, right? The parliament. And behind there is actually the park. This park, I was invited here in 2011 because of Gardens by the Bay. They wanted another garden here that makes, brings Sarawak to the new age of, garden design. And I was given a brief for that. Then after that, they said, oh, why don't we do the museum right in front here, this structure here? And I was given a brief for that too, So for that, I know a lot of things about Sarawak. But once these are completed, right, I realized that, in fact, I've visited the place and, wonderful displays, world-class displays. But I don't see enough of local people there. So the purpose was at a very high level. Well, in a way, it's policy. But how can you cascade it down to the people, right? So you know the spirit of the place, but more important thing about the spirit of the place is the social capital. People buying in, right? And this must be found. So I started to, because of those projects in Sarawak, I had the opportunity to work with Dato' Chris, and we were looking at the developments. Oh no, it's another development brief. It's about numbers and how we're going to make it work. How can it be world-class, right? But I felt there was something wrong. So I actually worked with Lawrence, and we came up with this idea of creating a place method, where we look at persons and how we can create impact, plans that create place, and products that eventually link to technology, because all products have some data in terms of production, processes, sales, customer needs. And this will basically power the central creative purpose. This gave us the reason for why, right? Okay. And all this is iterative, means we continue coming up with the ideas, going through this process, and focus on creative purpose. It's not done because of money. It's not done because of good. It's done because of all of that. The who is the next question. These three states of being, we had to ask really difficult questions, looking at ourselves in the mirror. Do we have the ability to create place? What are the development team's capabilities? What has been developed so far? For Saradise, the F&B sector was really interesting because Dato' Chris himself personally, has a lot of experience in creating lifestyle opportunities. But how do you make it Sarawak? So that's where we focused. What about place influence? What are the place characteristics that you and the community hold dear? Lawrence and team basically create a Saradise, so-called Kuching for Me essay competition. And we came up with the name Saradise because paradise was mentioned many times. But at the same time, they had tons of ideas like, it must feel family-like. We must have breakfast there. I'm quite sure you've experienced the kolomi and laksa. It must be there. So these are the characteristics that we need to look at, and so that whatever we can influence, we have all these characteristics intertwined into the design. And what are the networks you are involved in to make the development possible? So we know that we have land, but how do we create, influence? By, for example, Saradise, what is not shown here is that it hosts many years Kuching for Me exhibitions and art. There were competitions for lighting, there were competitions for sculpture and design, etc. All within Saradise. What about place differentiation? What's the unique difference in terms of the group of experts here? So we brought in not only experts from CPG and Consulus, there were also local experts, our local partners who are really great at designing in Sarawak. Some of them are here. And what's the difference in the team in terms of making and transforming the development projects? So it's not only designing one product, one typology, it's the entire ecosystem. Of course, please set aside time, because business as usual is the worst in terms of stopping you from moving forward. Create a network for this ecosystem, and finally, set aside resources to make it work. And finally, the how. 3 steps of co-creation. We identify the place, unique identity, and later, make sure it works with the team's talents. In this case, we actually studied the social and natural capital of the site. What about step 2? Is to enable and set up a business and organization model to create and secure investment. So you notice that everything here is not just ideas that float, but it must be practical and funded. So we envision brand designs for the organization and place design for the user experience. And finally, we actualize identity. So don't just talk about identity, do it. If you want kolomi, don't just do kolomi, but there are river prawns in the river. Why don't we just add a huge one there? That kind of thing. So all these things were ideated, tested, and finally acted upon. Just do it. And focus on the unique design DNA for growth, strategy, and data analysis. As we speak about Saradise 1, Saradise 2 is quickly taking shape. Because the DNA has become so strong, the umbrella so wide, it has a chance to move forward. And finally, the how. The 3 stages of maximization. The foundation building must happen so that you can create this hard pivot by sandboxing, create a little groups. The business goes on as usual, but these activation champions are very important move forward. And consolidating the feedback loop from all the data of your products and take up, Dr. Chris knows all the numbers, and how this feeds into the entire system. Finally, expansion. How to scale up and even take up all those ideas that we had. Somebody obviously mentioned trees somewhere because we were talking about landscape and it became future trees. So don't be a developer and remain a developer. Be an innovator. Finally, this is the actually hardest diagram to look at. Maybe you can take a photo of it. Because we move from a spirit of a place, we move to the spirit of the times, the zeitgeist. This is the innovation lens we should look at. AI is not to control us, but for us to learn and create AI to help ourselves. In fact, it's a type of machine learning. And the data is to feed back into the systems. So in the world, actually, there are two systems that's actually happening for anthromes, means anthropomorphic biomes. We have the nature part, which is on the top, which is using nature technologies, and we have the basically artificial part, including AI. These must be decided upon and focused upon to move forward. With that, thank you, and may we shape the world together.